It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a very special Thursday here on Red Eye Radio. Eric and Gary have a conundrum. Too much audio to play, not enough time.
Man, we got a ton of audio. But the thing that made me spit out my coffee when I woke up this morning.
Yeah? You had coffee in your mouth when you woke up?
Well, a few minutes after.
Okay.
And this one I burst out laughing. Yeah. The 2028 National Democratic Primary favorites.
Okay. Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Harris still at number one, 33%.
Uh-huh.
No, that's not why I laughed.
I know.
Buttigieg number two at 9%.
Okay.
Newsom at 7%.
Right.
AOC at 6%. Shapiro at 3%.
Okay.
Walz at 3%. Whitmer at 3%.
Uh-huh.
Klobuchar at 3%.
Mm-hmm.
And new to the list at 2%, sportscaster Stephen A. Smith. Well, that's what got to me. And apparently has a slight lead over Cory Booker. And
okay.
And Chris Murphy at 1%. I just mentioned Murphy because the Hill did a thing that this is the up and coming leader.
Yeah.
And then at the end, Trump's a dictator.
That's a big thing
because both sides like him, and he's not viewed as radical. And we're losing democracy, constitutional crisis, dictator Trump. It's like no. You're just trying to put a different personality with the same message over and over and over and over.
We've seen all of this before. By the way, I like the introduction of Stephen A. Smith, being new to the list here. I love that.
That, like I said, that was the moment where I went, oh, God, he's on the list.
And his beat pick would be Oberman. The resistance.
That's the problem. We need sports people running the government.
The right needs, we could complain like they did about, when they said, we need a Rogan, and we said, you had Rogan.
That was
for
the
longest time. We could do the same thing. Well, we need sports people. Yeah, no, we don't. I mean, we have Caitlyn Jenner. Steve Garvey.
Caitlyn Jenner and Steve Garvey. Well, that's about it.
No. I'm looking.
No.
Going through my little Rolodex in my tiny brain, I don't know. I mean, back in the day, Jack Kemp, right?
Yes, but he's no longer with
us. I know. I mean, I'm just trying to find anybody on the right, that's, a number of them, I guess, what?
Patrick Mahomes' wife.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Right? I mean, that's from what I know.
Sure.
Or is it the wife's mother? Or is it, I forgot which one.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, man. I'm telling you, what a day it was yesterday. The Democrats just can't. They just can't win anything right now.
Well,
they're getting.
It has to be the most frustrating if you're a rank and file Democrat, and you're looking for, all right, what's next, right? At some point, the party has to dust itself off, and get back on the horse, or in their case, their high horse. And they've really lost all of what used to work for them. But it's less about the party and more about where the people are. The people aren't responding to their same game. They keep doing the same thing, and it's not working. And it just makes you wonder how far this radical behavior goes. they're trying to be angry. We're taking it to the streets. This is war. And it's not. Nobody's responding. I mean, heck, in our city, there was a bigger protest turnout because of Luka's trade at the Mavs to the Lakers. That was the big protest. They can't get people united. They've got a handful of radicals here and there. You know, one of the most disturbing things was the ICE raid in Aurora, Colorado. And Fox News was with them, and they went there. They were looking for very dangerous people, gang members, and they had clearly been tipped off. And there were people standing around screaming at ICE, giving deference to dangerous people who are here illegally. You know, these are the radicals. And I have to think that if you're a rank and file Democrat and you're not part of that, you know, you're still going to be loyal to the party. What do? Or are you going to be loyal to the party? Are you going to do the Michael Rappaport thing? Are you going to do the Mark Pincus thing? Are you going to look at this and say, you know what? I don't have to be loyal to anybody. You and I have said for years, the people come and go. On the left, they can't have that. They need their idols. They need their rock stars. And they don't have any. I mean, the person who stands out to me, and probably only for my own amusement here, off that list is Stephen A. Smith. I would say Governor Shapiro. I mean, that would have been the choice in the past, but with the anti-Semitism that's very much alive on the left, I'm surprised he's even on the list.
What I found really interesting yesterday, and I can't play it because there's too much cursing in it, because that's what Democrats do now. They've gone from Hitler to cursing. And it was the podcast with the former Obama people, John Favreau and others. Yeah. And they're just like, there's nothing we can do. There's just, Trump is just, he's operating so fast. And how can you be against streamlining government?
Right. Yeah.
But you can't be against it. And he's, and they're like, it's terrible what he's doing, but how do you fight it? Well, what they recognize is the public wants it.
Yeah.
The public has said, we want the streamlining. We want it. You and I have always said, will they want it if their programs get cut?
Right.
But right now, when you look at what they're looking at for fraud, waste, abuse, they got, was it 75,000 now on the volunteer list to take the buyout, which is unprecedented, but they're up to 75,000 I saw yesterday. And now that's back going. But they can't win any argument. That's the problem. They can't win. And in politics, you got to be able to win some kind of argument, and they can't win it. Yesterday I was watching some of the hearings that was going on the day before. We'll have some of that audio coming up, but they're just throwing out. Yesterday was the thing that there's no transparency. Yeah, and it's well, you're wrong. There is. Here's where it is, and we'll go through the audio there. Right. No, you can go right. The website's there. You can see the contract. You can see the receipts. And then Trump yesterday, middle of the day, by the way, we're going to have another thing tomorrow where we're going to give you the evidence, more of the evidence. We're going to keep throwing evidence at you and evidence and evidence. And so they keep saying there's no transparency. And think about this, no transparency, and you're dealing with the people that supported the Biden administration that had zero transparency.
Yeah.
Okay. 0.000000001% transparency.
Yeah, and they've realized on the left that the name calling isn't working either. I mean, they're still doing it, but it's going nowhere. It really does feel like we're walking around, that there all in a soundproof dome. And we're walking around that dome watching them crying and banging on the inside of that dome as they scream names and now expletives, cursing. And we're just kind of eating our popcorn, walking around going, okay, I guess this is what's going to be on display for a while, because it goes nowhere. The name calling really wasn't effective. So what did they have to do in the past? They played all of their big guns. They have played everything they could play. Russian hoax. 2 bogus impeachments. And then after the 2 assassination attempts.
Then the lawfare.
And lawfare and everything else. Where else do you go? Because that they had to couple with the name calling, right? He's so bad, we're going to make up 34 counts of nothing and just throw it. And we'll get a judge to help us do that. And that's exactly what went down.
Well, that's one of the reasons why they're losing this. You know, right now they're like, the Democrats are stuck on this narrative that they've already lost.
Yeah.
They lost the narrative that the only corrupt people could be would be Republican politicians,
right,
or Trump.
Right.
That it's only the politicians, that DAs and judges can't be corrupt and
right,
can't be partisan.
Right.
Well, the American public elected Trump because a significant portion believe that the rot, the actual rot that exists out there, the corruption that exists out there is in the judges and in the DAs. And the Democrats don't realize that's one of the reasons they lost last November. So they're still throwing the same thing out, and we'll have some of that audio coming up, too. I mean, Scott Jennings, it's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And everybody was yesterday articulating, all the Republicans were articulating, this is simple. That Elon Musk works for the president.
Yeah.
The president was elected.
Right.
You Democrats are saying that the unelected people are the ones who should spend the money and make the decisions. You can't say that and claim that you're for democracy. It's the opposite that you're for. And every day, it's like, I feel like this is Groundhog Day now.
Yeah,
over and over again.
Yeah.
It's like, you lost that argument yesterday. We're going to use the same flawed argument again today. All right, here's the answer again. You've lost it again today. Tomorrow, they'll come out and try to repeat it. And the thing is that the right is communicating, the Republicans are communicating and pounding on it every single day. One of the things you and I said before about Republicans is the Democrats will pound something every single day. And Republicans will come out, refute it well, and then not talk about it again.
Right.
And we're like, no, you got to have repetition. And sometimes you and I've talked about it before that, you know, we'll be here talking about something. It's like, Eric, we've made the same argument all week. And it's like, yeah, but it's the right argument against their, their narrative, which is wrong. They keep making the same narrative. There's only one answer, and they keep making it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we've got to take the argument that destroys their argument, which is the same argument every day.
Right.
And like we're in this loop. It's like,
well, the other day they got in the constitutional crisis loop.
Yep.
Those were the talking points, and they had to wake up Chuck Schumer and, hey, could you go to the podium and act like you're angry? And we're taking it to the streets, and this is war, and no, it's not, and no, you're not, because nobody's going to be there. You've overplayed everything. You guys realize on the left that you were the ones who came up with the Russian hoax and with lawfare. Is there anything else you could do? Throw at this president? No. The name calling and we don't like Elon. Blah, 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 blah. You're a bunch of children. You got nothing because you can't discuss the issues. You know the bureaucracies have been working in your favor to facilitate redistributive rights for years. That's what's been going on. That's exactly what you've been using it for, right under the American people's nose. And now it's all being exposed.
You know, the Democrats are right now. Did you see yesterday they're trying to introduce a reparations bill, a federal reparations bill?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, you're really into what the public is concerned about now.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. It's like we got to get back to the thing that we've used for the last 30 years, which is race and climate change.
Yeah, right.
They don't know where to go.
No. Right.
And it was fascinating watching the podcast of the former Obama advisors. They're like, we're just telling you we're frustrated because there's nowhere we can go here.
Right. There is no play.
Right.
There is no play here. None.
We got a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Tires command a lot of attention. As a top expense for drivers and a leading cause of CSA violations, any tire maintenance practice that can help extend tire life is worth consideration. Consider tire balancing, which can set you up for savings and a smoother ride before your tires touch the highway. Tire balancing corrects an uneven distribution of weight in tires and wheel assemblies, but the trick is to be proactive and not reactive. Conduct routine tire inspections and pay special attention to any unusual wear patterns. Once unusual tread wear is visible on a tire, its traction and stopping distance is reduced and its lifespan will likely be shortened.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Thank you for being here yesterday. I looked at yesterday and just said it was the day that every argument that the Democrats have had the last couple of weeks went down the tubes. It just seems as if, they're using that, and it's not their argument. It's the fact that the Republicans and even the media, Jonathan Turley just all over it yesterday.
Yeah.
Saying, stop this stuff.
Right.
There's no constitutional crisis out there. And the other thing, and he even mentioned it, Trump, for example, says, I'll follow whatever the courts say, but we'll appeal it. But we're still going to move forward on it.
Right.
And then the left comes out and says, Trump's not going to follow what the courts say. Well, he just said he is going to follow what the courts say.
He said quite the opposite.
Right. And it's just, they have no, I've never seen and I'm serious, in my 42 years of covering politics and almost 36 in talk radio, I've never seen a political party that doesn't have an argument that they can use.
Yeah.
They don't have one.
Yeah.
It really is amazing.
They really don't.
It's amazing to see this. And people may say, well, you're just a partisan and you're saying that. Watch that podcast. I watched the podcast of the Obama surrogates, John Favreau, and I can't think of the other two names, but they're all Democrats, and they're going, we can't do anything. You can't be against efficiency in government. You just can't be against it right now.
Yeah.
And they have no argument, and they say, we're just letting you know that, we're basically depressed and not happy with what's going on, but there's nothing that we can do. That's amazing. Think about it. They have gone so insane on the issues where they're even now admitting, Democrats, we got nothing.
We got nothing.
Tell your friends, we're here nightly. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
It's Harley Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here. How's everybody doing? What a day, huh?
Another crazy day.
Talking to somebody yesterday, they said, "How's it doing? Talk radio? What's it like?" And I went,
"So great,
like the Super Bowl every day." But it's
really
been that way.
Is.
It has been that way for a while, though.
It's been that way for a while. One of the things is that we go through these cycles of very serious situations. Obviously, we go back to January of 2017 when we came back from our Christmas break and the whole Russian hoax thing, where we were like, wait a minute, this thing evolved like light years from where it was before the end of the year. And we followed that. And a lot of those things get tedious, but it's really, to me, always interesting. I know our audience paid attention too. There was a lot of getting in the weeds on that one. And then, all the serious things that happen. But also there's the entertaining side, and that's watching the left react to certain things. And we haven't seen this kind of reaction. It really is the loudest it's been, but it's not unified with the rank and file base being with them. It's just, that certain group within the Democratic Party that's doing it, that's making all the noise, and nobody seems to be listening. They're not connecting. Even their own side is saying, you can't do this. This isn't working. This is going nowhere. The late night comedians have nothing. I saw where Jimmy Fallon brought on David Letterman the other night.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And I thought, wow, okay, well, the thing is it's because they become activists. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel is over the top. Fallon, not really, but Kimmel, over the top crazy. He's just over the top.
I know.
This is the guy who cries at every turn anytime Trump does something good. He's crying about it, and quite literally sometimes. But they don't. The thing is that if there is material, you have Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart, who went off on Schumer the other day. That was hilarious. Number one, your job is to be funny. Number two, you're being funny about things that are happening. But he had no problem taking off on Schumer and other Democrats who just look ridiculous right now. And I think that's where they are. It's like, this is so cringe. You either have to lean into it like Jon Stewart is doing if you're a late night comedian, or you have to just shut the door and turn everything off and not pay attention. Who was it that said that years ago that all of her friends she knew, if there was anything bad about Hillary back in 2016, they would just turn everything off and ignore it? Who was that?
Maureen.
Was it Maureen Dowd?
Maureen Dowd, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, those are the dynamics, and I love it. You and I had a very busy day, meetings and a lot of things going on, but the cycle of things that are going on, the director of national intelligence was sworn in. There's all of these things that we have now in place as Trump's team gels even more. The left seems to be falling apart even more.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I haven't seen him in the last couple of days, but did you see? Well, you're not really on Facebook much. On social media, where the commercials with Robert with RFK Jr. came on, where he's talking about that metformin and other drugs, don't help for type 2 diabetes, and take whatever vinegar supplement he was talking about. That ad will have to stop once he gets confirmed. But that ad was running. I'm just shaking my head, going, God, he's such a bad pick.
Yeah,
he's such a whore. But again, if he's going to do what Trump says, that's all you can expect. But like I said, I'm past that. There's so much good coming. I never expect 100%. If I get 50%, if I get 40% from a Republican, I'm happy. And we're probably over 80%, maybe close to 90% with Trump.
Right.
Some challenges he's going to have. I mean, when you look, and we'll get to this coming up in a little bit, the inflation numbers. I mean, the inflation numbers, and I did see that report from the gasoline council that gas is up a little bit, and it's because of the tariffs.
Right.
And so when you have again, it's not, the inflation numbers were not good that came out yesterday.
Right.
They were not good. The core inflation wasn't good. Core inflation. Well, we'll get to all the statistics coming up. And the president is out, talking about the fact that the Fed needs to lower rates. And, well, so you want lower rates, which would accelerate an economy at the same time where you're putting inflation pressure on, and maybe even more with tariffs, as you're calling for, the interest rates to go way down, which would cause inflation to go up.
Yeah.
Because just like anything else, when you sit there and you say, okay, here's free stuff, well, that free stuff becomes more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because there really is no free stuff.
No, there isn't. And I did think it was laughable, Powell. Well, I'm not going to be political on this. Are you really? You're not?
Yeah.
But there is no move here because you can't.
But they shouldn't lower rates.
Well, and they shouldn't have. There was no reason for them to do that.
No, there wasn't.
They didn't go far enough on raising the rates. If you're going to do that in order to get on top of inflation, then do it. And they weren't. Said it from the beginning. Jerome Powell has never been serious about inflation.
We saw this with in the 70s. I lived through it.
Right.
It was 10 years of inflation.
Right. Yep.
And then Volcker came in and said, okay, 20%.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, man. But it's that's the one concern, because that's the one thing that will kill Republicans are doing 90%, and Trump's doing 90% great stuff. If you don't win the battle of inflation, you lose in 2026.
Well, because what's the next logical step? Inflation doesn't go away and even possibly ticks up a little bit. Well, then you've got to get on top of it. How do you get on top of it? Raising rates. Something tells me if Trump's president, Jerome Powell wouldn't have a problem raising the rates again. In order to do what? Slow down the economy. You got to bring on a recession. And if that were to happen, if that plays out, now, again, we're not there yet, but that's where this goes. If inflation isn't tamed and then all of a sudden turns around and starts to go up again, well, I have no doubt.
It's up, what, 4 straight months?
Yeah, but I mean, if it really starts to, if we start feeling real, serious inflation, and Jerome Powell says, because I have no doubt he's going to move on it this time with Trump in office. And then, well, we'll hear it. This is, I can write it for him right now. Well, we possibly weren't serious enough before.
Oh, yeah.
And now we need to, in order to really get on top of it this time, well, you got to bring on, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to slow down the economy, which means lost jobs, higher unemployment. That's the way it works with that game. Like it or not, that's the way it works with that game. And those are the principles that are going to guide that entire thing. And the timing would be right at, I don't know, peaking right at November of 2026.
To do what?
If they were to raise the rates, imagine if we got into a recession or if we got into higher inflation
I think
they raised rates.
Yeah, they'll raise rates before that.
Exactly.
If inflation keeps going up, they'll raise it.
And again, you bring on a recession. You're trying to slow things. You're trying to get into a real slowdown in Jerome Powell. So, yeah, timing's perfect for your midterm. It's never perfect. It's never good.
It's never perfect.
You've got to expand
perfect,
you've got to expand the economy.
But Trump has to do what Trump has to do.
Mm-hmm.
Jerome Powell's a separate entity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about what Trump has to do, and Trump wants interest rates a lot lower.
That's what I was talking about.
And he wants what I was talking about. And he wants yeah, but you're talking about Powell. Powell's a different thing.
No, I'm talking about what we started talking about Trump.
Right.
And then it goes to and that happens, all of a sudden inflation comes back. And if inflation is there, I have no doubt Jerome Powell will act.
Well,
so be careful what you ask for here.
Well,
that's my whole point.
Understand when I'm talking about what Trump's going to do. The inflation numbers for January is not Trump's fault.
No,
all right, those
of course
are that's not. But it's the hand that he's been dealt.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at the fact that he wants a lot lower interest rates, which would accelerate, as we've said, in inflation, and if you at the same time are putting tariffs on all sides, and remember, you don't have, and I don't know when the Republicans are going to be able to get a tax bill passed, when nothing that you're doing that you can do is pro-growth and everything is economic decisions that put pressure on increasing inflation.
That's exactly the point I was making.
That's not where you want to be. But you kept focusing on the politics of the Fed
which all
chair.
starts and it starts and ends with the policies that are in place now.
Right.
If you get those policies lead to higher inflation, Jerome Powell's going to act and send us into a recession just in time for the November midterm. That's my whole point.
Well,
We're on the same page.
Well, yeah, except my point is he'll raise rates before November.
Yeah, he just might.
That point.
But if you keep doing things and we don't see pro-growth, there's no doubt it's going to be a hefty increase because he'll say, well, we didn't do it right the first time. Maybe we overlooked blah, 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 and weren't serious enough, blah, blah, blah. When Trump is in office, he won't have a problem. So you've got to expand the economy. It's the only move you can do right now because people are waiting for it. They're waiting right now for prices to go down. That's unrealistic. We know.
No, but
you've got to expand the economy.
But if the inflation is as bad as it might be because we've been up for, if you expand the economy, that's going to increase inflation more.
If you expand wealth, I'm talking about expanding wealth. The buying power is not going to come back unless you expand wealth. That's how it happens. Because you're not going to bring prices aren't going to come down. We've been talking about this, well, it seems like forever. Prices aren't coming down. You've got to expand wealth. There has to be some moves right now, big moves, which, by the way, are going to, we said this the other day, going to require Congress on them. You're going to have to make some moves on energy and other things that really expand wealth in the economy. That's where the buying power comes back. That's the only way the buying power comes back because prices aren't coming down. If we reach the target rate of 2% inflation, they're not coming back down. The only way you get their buying power back is to expand wealth.
Well, if you expand wealth, right now you have very low unemployment compared to if you look at the averages.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're expanding an economy at 2.5% or 3%, we still have the same problem we had. You may have wages go up, but then wages go up. Remember, the economy was not completely in the toilet during the Biden administration. Inflation is what killed him. So you can expand the economy, and if inflation's still there, you're still politically dead.
Yes, with all the other things in place. That's why I say the only move right now has to be expanding wealth. Well, if you throw in tariffs or anything that is going to add to inflation, there's your danger.
Well, the danger is
that's not pro-growth.
The danger is the expansion of the economy will cause more inflation.
I'm talking about expanding the wealth of the American people, expanding the wealth.
Well, how do you
it's always going to
expanding
expand.
the wealth is expanding the economy. There's no difference. I don't understand where you're going.
We've talked about for years how you expand wealth. And that expands the buying power for the American people.
Right, but and I'm
what am I missing?
No, I'm for pro-growth policies, but expanding the economy when you're in a bad inflationary period, as we saw because of government policy, causes inflation. That's why they're trying to slow it down, as you've said.
Well,
so how do you?
They haven't been trying to slow it down.
I don't understand when you say that you expand the wealth without expanding the economy, which causes inflation.
I didn't say without expanding the economy.
Period.
I'm talking about what the effect would be on the American people.
Okay, we'll figure this out. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The discussion continued during the break. I'll say this. Again, I'm not against, I want to make this clear, I'm not against economic expansion. We have to have it. I think the interesting thing is, and you'll probably agree with this with me, that with AI, increasing the productivity is imperative if you're going to expand the economy but reduce inflation.
Sure, in every industry.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. All right. We've been continuing the conversation, just looking at the inflation numbers out there. Consumer prices overall increased 3% from a year earlier, up from 2.9% the previous month, according to the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index. That's the most since June and above the 2.9% expected by the economist surveyed. Like that means anything. On the monthly basis, costs jumped 0.5%, the most since August of 2023, up from 0.4% in December. Eggs and used cars were among the biggest contributors there. So core inflation, which takes out food and energy items, climbed 0.4% to a 10-month high, following a 0.2% bump the prior month. That pushed the annual increase back to 3.3% from 3.2% the previous month. So, that's what we were talking about that during the break about what's going to happen. Trump wanting interest rates to go down. We talk about the effect on tariffs. You and I talking about, what happens if the economy expands. And I'll say this, when we talk about the economy expanding, there's two ways. You're producing more goods and services or you're increasing productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons I believe, and I saw Marco Rubio yesterday talking about AI in Europe and saying, let's not overregulate this. Regulations, if you look what will bring down how you can expand an economy, now that we get into the specifics of economy, I'm looking short term. But long term, how you expand an economy is you produce more product or, because you can have both, you increase productivity. Productivity decreased in 2022, went up in 2023. In 2023, productivity growth was 2.7%. That's close to the 2.9% that we saw in the 90s. From 2023 to 2024, the average productivity increased 2.3%. Now, regulations from government helps push down productivity. So
right.
If you're going to expand the economy, it's not just the production of goods and services, or of goods that you produce and or services. It's the efficiency in which you do that. AI, and I think that's why you have the Trump administration saying, let's not overregulate AI, because they believe that is the key. Because if you want to, because we were talking about expansion of the economy, if you expand the economy and a significant portion of that is increasing productivity, that's more non-inflationary.
Two major movers in expanding an economy at the basis are innovation. So I would agree with the idea of not over-regulating AI, because this is likely the next major step in the way that smartphones were, that really helps to expand an economy through innovation. But we've kind of reached that plateau, right? Well, now they have a new phone, whether it's the iPhone or the Android. There's the new one every year. Hey, it's okay. Now it's got more pixels or whatever. But it's reached that plateau where it's not really. In fact, one of the changes you're seeing on the 24 and 25 model, I saw the Samsung S25 ad, but they're integrating the AI into, in these phones. A lot of people are still kind of standoffish, and it's like, I don't want my phone actually taking over. I want to still be able to control certain things. But they're doing that to, again, create more efficiencies in the user experience for smartphones, which has created a ton of efficiencies. Then you get into one of the other major movers of expanding an economy, and that is mining. That's oil and natural gas.
Right.
And that industry has done more in terms of creating efficiencies on mining with horizontal drilling and all the technology that's being used today. It's a lot more efficient than it used to be. And so that means they can get in and, for oil, they can, in fact, the cost of mining per barrel is lower. That's what you're trying to get at. You're trying to, and you need a bigger base. You need a bigger customer base. In that sector, you're going to need manpower. We talk about manufacturing. If you're going to expand an economy, you're going to need more people. But as you run into that problem more and more, because the birth rate is extremely low, and right now we just don't have enough people to fill those roles, then automation and efficiencies are going to fill those roles, and they have to. The demand is going to be there. We've got, right now, the perfect setting to make big moves, but it has to be done on Capitol Hill. The executive moves by Trump are great, but they can be undone 4 years from now if the Democrats win the White House again, and you don't want that. And the reason that this is important is because if you're going to invest, whether you're a manufacturer or you're in oil and natural gas, if you're going to invest long-term, you're not going to do that without a long-term political environment that is pro-growth, that is pro-manufacturing, that is pro-drilling. These things have to be done on Capitol Hill. That's why it's important for those things to happen.
Right, because when you look at the expansion of an economy and what would help to lower inflation by expanding an economy would be producing more oil, natural gas, dropping the price of that, getting rid of the insanity of the alternative energy, lowering electricity prices to the lowest in the world and be the first to do it, which helps more people come over because if electricity prices are half in the United States, well, you see it. Electricity prices are basically half in Texas as they are in California, and you see the companies are moving here.
Right.
And so that you can expand long term. It's not going to happen immediately. And my concern is the biggest threat to the Trump presidency and to the Republican Party right now is inflation.
Yeah.
Because the border, people look at it and go, they sort of solved the problem. People aren't crossing. They stop get on it, go to the app, fill it out. Okay, we're solving that problem. That's being taken care of. Defund the police isn't as big as an issue anymore. Now the public seems to be behind the efficiency, looking for the efficiencies in government. If the Republicans, still another thing that sits there and is an albatross, is the debt that we have. The president is screaming for lower interest rates. That's not going to happen anytime soon. No. So he can scream all he wants. He's not going to do it. Powell, whether Powell and I agree with you, he's political because there was no reason to lower interest rates as he did in September, and then in was it November he did again?
Yeah.
Yeah, twice because it was totally 0.75. And now you see inflation's going back up again.
Right.
The inflation numbers from January aren't President Trump's fault.
No.
But it's the hand that he's been dealt. My fear is the midterms. If they don't win both houses, if they don't expand it, and the one thing that will kill them is inflation.
Well, and you've got that on one hand, and on the other hand, you have the regulations and the mandates. Getting on top, doing away with the mandates again with the signature is great, but the problem with that is we need Congress to act on the OEM mandates too, because the OEMs won't invest. They still think the EV mandates will come back. A Democrat comes back. Mm-hmm. If we can do away with the costly regulation, I mean, the cost of cars and trucks is insane before you talk about EVs. But that was the plan. Under my plan of cap and trade, electricity rates will necessarily skyrocket. Forget what I say about coal, whether it's good or bad. It's the same principle here. If you put in all these regulations that force the OEMs to make these moves, well, they have to do it with the gas-powered and diesel-powered vehicles and everything in their fleet along the way, and that makes it more costly, which then eventually, oh, look, it's the same price as an EV. And that's exactly what they were trying to do. That's the entire agenda. We need to get back to a much more sane policy on cars and trucks and do away with these mandates that have been put in place. We can talk about clean air, but then again, we learned that smog was actually saving the planet, remember?
Yeah. But so
if you didn't hear that show.
So when you look at it, the president said this yesterday, interest rates should be lowered, something which would go hand in hand with the upcoming tariffs. So what he's saying is we need to lower interest rates because the tariffs are going to hurt.
That's exactly what I took from it.
Yeah, that's what
this is gonna be the balance here, but you're not going to get that balance, and Powell's not going to do it. Powell's more inclined to go the opposite direction.
You and I have always talked about it, and I've said, and I've asked this question, never got an answer. I've been asking this question for 30 years. Because it talks about why the Fed exists, and we've seen the problems that the Fed has caused. Keeping interest rates artificially low as they did. Mm-hmm. In order to buy your own debt,
right?
To keep the spending going. I mean, that's they should be gone for that. Ron Paul has talked about and ran to get rid of the Fed, and it's like you and I've always asked the question: why can't the interest rate be organic?
Right.
What will banks pay, for money? What will people pay for money? Right. What is that level? Why can't the level of interest rates be set like the level of currency in the private currency exchange?
Right.
Because that's what it's set. The value of the dollar is, really set by that. Mm-hmm. What other people will buy your currency for, the trading of the currency.
Right.
Well, why can't that be done for the interest rates? Because we see this, and Trump isn't alone in doing this. Okay, I'm going to put tariffs in here. All right, interest rates need to be, and so there's the government trying to control. All right, let's do this over here to help these industries, and then we got to lower the interest rate because we did this over here. And then you get the government, which is the one that's in there trying to figure out how do we make an economy go right because we're putting rules and regulations over here and regulations over there. And remember, we talk about less regulations. Tariffs are regulations. Mm-hmm. And so that's the challenge that he has. Now, I have no problem with what he said yesterday. Again, tariffs on China are fine. Yeah. Tariffs on, where I saw yesterday where he said, look, these companies that are putting tariffs on us, we're going to reciprocate. Well, yeah, you should.
Right.
Because they're involved in unfair trade practices, and it's the only thing that you can do. But the president now has admitted, and when I saw that statement yesterday, that's the second time he's admitted tariffs hurt and will hurt the American consumer.
Right.
Well, that means you're thinking the thinking in the White House is the same as ours, which is it pushes the inflationary pressure up. And so you've got the inflationary pressure up. And so what are you going to do, and how fast, can you get lower energy prices that actually affect the economy? Does that happen in 6 months? Does that happen in a year? The regulations, if you have a lot less regulations, if the Republicans are able to come out and say, we've cut the budget $100 billion for 2026, does that have an effect on markets? The problem is I don't see how you get it lower with the debt. The debt has gotten to the point, and the interest on the debt has gotten to the point where I don't see how you can lower interest rates unless you just artificially do it to boom the economy, and I don't believe that's the right thing to do.
Well, it's not going to work. It won't work because, again, you still have these principles that he inherited here.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not at that point of justifying lowering those rates. And, one of the things you have to do, part of all this with, deregulation and the political environment, but also a sane fiscal policy, is part of attracting those investors from other parts of the world that want to come here, set up shop, manufacturing, whatever it might be. That's great. But they have to know that is long-term. They have to know that there's something that's really changing and having an effect. It's hard to do that short-term.
That's the problem.
And
that's the challenge that Trump has.
It is.
You have to do it in a short time in order to get reelected in the midterm.
Right.
And that's why the question we've asked, and that's why we're so concerned about tariffs and anything that puts any type of inflationary pressure on it, because you have such a short time, and inflation is the one thing that will destroy the movement of the Republicans, and then you go back to nothing being done over the next 2 years, and then do Democrats get elected by pretending that they're more fiscally conservative?
Right. Yeah, it is the conundrum that the GOP has. You're going to have to tackle this massive monster that is what's going on with the economy.
And we saw, the first 4 months, government outlays up 15% from the year before.
Yeah.
15%.
And a huge chunk of that in January.
And the debt, the interest on the debt, the interest expected to be $1.2 trillion by October 1st.
Yeah.
866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Managing time is key. Successful owner-operators know that simply running hard is not enough. If it were that easy, anyone could do the job and expect the profits to roll in. It generally pays to slow down. There is a trade-off in higher costs, not to mention the increased risk for driving fast. If driving slower takes time away from you, you could find some of the ways to get it back. Never take time off during the last 2 weeks of the quarter or the last week of the month, when freight typically is abundant. Sometimes it works to your advantage to look for loads that take you through home rather than to home. The latter can interrupt your revenue stream and require additional time to get back up to full speed again. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, we've got tons of audio coming up. We may just sit and play audio for the rest of the week from yesterday because it was such a zoo. The interesting thing is, you think of eggs, for example, that have gone up in prices. We talk about inflation because of the bird flu. Well, I mean, they should be going down then in the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so eggs would probably be going down. if there's a slowdown, that also bring down prices. But really getting, as we've talked about before, productivity, which you can attain two ways, technology and what was I going to say? Technology.
Through greater efficiencies.
Right. Greater efficiencies, management systems, technology, AI. And less government regulations. That's what can get you there.
Sure.
Now, how quickly can you get there?
Right.
That's the question. That's the challenge the Trump administration has, because the inflation numbers are not their fault.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 866-90 Red Eye. I'm sitting here thinking how it's like I love talking economics, and times I hate talking economics.
Well, I love saying, wow, look at the economy. It's going great, but we're just not in that situation right now where everything is in place. We have the right people. We have the right mix of people in office right now. We could use a few more GOPers on Capitol Hill, but there is right now, I think, probably more than there has been in years, the political will to get it done, and this president has the mandate by the American people. That's why we've talked about it. In his first term, for those first 2 years while he had the GOP, we were saying, look, you should be every day posting, hey, I want to build the wall, because that was his thing then. I want to build the wall. I want to build the wall, and I need my fellow Republicans to come together and help me build the wall. They need to help me out here, and that's how you campaign in that mode. Well, this time, he doesn't even need to do that. This is a much different environment right now with the GOP. They're clearly behind this president, maybe not Mitch McConnell, but he's got his party behind him. So this is the timing. You've got to, make those moves. Then the problem is, all right, you got to enact the laws. The laws take effect, September 1st of blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And then, the effect of blah, 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 blah. And things move slowly by design, except when they decide to just take a ton of cash that they shouldn't have and throw it at the American public after COVID, which started the inflation. It wasn't long after that boom, the inflation. Well, getting it back down is a very long game, getting it back to where it needs to be and returning the buying power. One of the things that we talk about in the first Trump term was the buying power for American families. It was incredible. It was in a very good place, certainly by comparison. A much better place than where we're at now. You had record low unemployment, and you had for minority groups you had record low unemployment. Things were going as they should, very much in the right direction. Now you've got the political will, but you've got the disaster that you've inherited that was built over the last 4 years.
The one thing, because we talk about, in inflation and how to get that under control. Again, not Trump's fault, but inflation, up. And it's, when the numbers came out yesterday, I'm like, oh, boy. Because everything needs to be done. You need to get it. The public needs to know that you got a handle on it by the time we get to the midterms. But one thing, Ron DeSantis pointed this out yesterday. Anything that Biden enacted via reconciliation, which only requires 50 Senate votes, can be repealed via reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
You can cut back, for example, you can go through the Inflation Reduction Act and cut all that stuff out. You
Right.
can do that now as a Republican Party. And as Ron DeSantis put that out yesterday, Republicans have 53 senators. They can save trillions by repealing Biden's spending. If you can do that, you send a message to the markets that you're serious.
Exactly.
You're serious about cutting, and you're talking about trillions of dollars there that isn't going to affect the average. This isn't money being taken out of your Social Security.
Right.
This isn't, and by the way, that's not going to happen anyway. I mean, Democrats are trying to make it sound like, the average taxpayer is going to lose money. But you take this stuff that was recently passed and you get rid of it. You start doing everything you can.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to, the Fed isn't going to. Trump can scream and yell. They're not going to lower the interest rates, especially after what happened yesterday. And again, he basically admits, that Powell that he made the mistake. Well, we can't do it. We probably were too aggressive. No blank, Sherlock.
Right.
I told you that, but it doesn't matter. It's the hand you've been dealt right now. What do you do? And that's why I think the Republican Congress needs to do their job, and you're going to have disagreements here or there, but you know something? You can't sit there and protect and be in the bubble of I got to protect everything in my district, because you're never going to get done what you need to get done. Mm-hmm. And so, when I saw that, I go, that's right, you can repeal it versus reconciliation. But other than that, other than the challenges, and it's not there yet for the president. It's not we're looking down the road, because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We look down the road of the challenges that this administration faces. And after yesterday, it was clear inflation. And then when the president came out and said, look, we need to lower interest rates in order to really offset the tariffs. At that point, you're like, okay, they recognize inflation is a problem. But if you're looking for the Fed to do that after the inflation numbers yesterday, that's not going to happen.
No.
And so that's the thing. What do you have left? Cut regulations, cut spending, accelerate, the production of natural gas and oil, and reduce our reliance on the alternative forms of energy that is more expensive and drastically lower electricity prices. But you're not going to bring massive amounts of companies in by the time the midterm comes, and that's the problem that you have. That's the challenge that you have.
No, but you hit on something. One of the positive effects could be the markets responding to things along the way.
Yes.
The markets have responded to Trump being elected, actually, since November. But you make these moves, and then investors see that as, all right, it's a different type of investment, because, you can buy the stock today and then sell it, an hour later. But, tomorrow it's going to be part of the big sell. But there is an effect there. If there is that trend where the markets say, all right, good move, boom, good move, boom. People see that in their 401ks. They see that in other ways. And it also means that companies have a greater market cap. They have a greater ability, if not the confidence, the greater ability to invest. And so that is, again, setting the table. It's not getting you all the way there, but it's a step in the right direction. It's the things you have to do. All of these, I'm convinced it's why I really think I'm right at this. I don't think Trump or Elon Musk are sleeping at all. I don't think they're going to bed ever. Everybody says, he has multiple versions of the same suit. I think he just has not gotten, it's not changed. Since Election Day, he's been working. But it's going to require that. You and I have always said, if we were ever elected and ever president, we both have the same mentality. We would take it so seriously. It's like, okay, we wouldn't take a day off for that 4 years, 8 years, whatever it turned out to be, because you take that role seriously. Well, Trump clearly takes it very seriously and has always had that work ethic to begin with. Elon Musk, same thing. But it requires that. I mean, it's going to require these types of individuals who were almost literally working around the clock to undo what Biden did. And even then, it's still going to seem slow. You mentioned...
By the way, Elon was up 47 minutes ago.
Yeah,
he's responding.
He's always posting during... I think he listens to Red Eye Radio.
That's what it must be.
Yeah, I think he does.
Well, he's playing some of our audio cuts. That
Yeah. Well, Milton Friedman, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, if he's playing Milton Friedman, who else would have mentioned Milton Friedman in the last 2 or 3 years?
Exactly.
Except us.
So thanks, Elon, for listening. We greatly appreciate it. Those are the, everybody's making jokes about eggs, by the way. Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Open the box, there's an egg.
Yeah. I got my wife 3 dozen, instead of 3 dozen roses, 3 dozen eggs, because I can afford it. It really is you're in the reality is that's, again, a unique situation going on with the bird flu and the shortage and everything else going on there. We've seen that before. We've also seen those prices come back down. And they eventually will, as you mentioned earlier. But people are looking for things to change, and they need to see something. You're going to have to. There has to be that payoff for those voters to keep them present, because they're fickle. One thing you and I know about doing this for years, the American public is fickle. You're in like Flynn today. You're cool, you're hip, everybody's doing the Trump dance, and then tomorrow you're Hitler again because you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I don't think that's what we're seeing here. But in fact, to that point, the legacy for Donald Trump isn't just going to be what he does in this 4 years. It's going to be if J.D. Vance is the guy in 28 and he can take this same agenda and spirit of this agenda and these ideas. You and I have talked about it. The people come and go. It's the ideas that remain, the ideas that work that remain. And the right people can, if they get the message across, convince the American people that these ideas need to be the ones implemented as policy.
No, I agree with you. The legacy is not the 4 years. The legacy is, number one, the comeback, and he's the one that made it so for a generation the Republicans were in control, and that's what you want. And that's, again, why we're so sensitive to the whole inflation thing. He's done, like I said, he's done incredible things in the first 3 weeks, and he's been left a bad hand, by insane people that were running fiscal policy, in the last administration, because that's what caused the inflation. Inflation, like we've had, was caused by government. It was caused by a couple of things. As we've said, it was caused by too much government spending, too much money, too few products, free money, and then massive lower interest rates to buy our own debt. All that is what's caused caused inflation that we see today. That's the massive inflation that you see that lasts multiple years, is always done by the government. Right. And, you don't hear anymore the whole thing that corporations are causing inflation. Why? Because that didn't stick, because people knew it. People know what causes inflation.
Right.
And so Trump is still in a grace period. His numbers look great.
Yeah.
Numbers are through the roof right now. And I want it to keep that way because he can't run again. There's not going to be a third Trump term. We know that was being talked about the first week after he was inaugurated again, but that's not going to happen. And so you want this thing to go on. If you want change in this country, you're really going to need a party to be in control and have a significant portion of control for 10 years. You really are.
Well, you are, and I think that you've got all the major players that are in place that are confidently communicating their views and their positions and their convictions, and that's a good thing. We saw that with, again, the cabinet picks during the hearings. We've seen that before the election. We saw it. We saw it on stage at the convention last summer. It was very impressive, and where the GOP should have been for years. And now they're there, and this is what will carry it on beyond Trump's current term.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Quickly, I want to play this audio. It's very short, but it's from Representative Robert Garcia, who was on CNN, called Elon Musk the D word again. Now they seem to be big on that. The F word and the D word.
All right.
To describe a part of the male anatomy. But I went past that, and he talks about, listen to this violent rhetoric, talking about, he says, bring actual weapons.
Wow.
Here we go.
And I think that he's also harming the American public in an enormous way. And what I think is really important, and what the American public want, is for us to bring actual weapons to this bar fight. This is an actual fight for democracy.
Wow. Actual weapons.
Actual weapons. Yep. That's where they are right now. We got so much audio coming up.
Wow.
We will entertain. No. The audio cuts will entertain you.
Exactly.
Got me.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, the California representative, Robert Garcia, who called Elon Musk the D word, that seems to be the new favorite of Democrats. Senator John Kennedy has some advice for you.
He needs to put down the bong. He needs to put down the bong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to use that for everything now. We can tailor, even though he was saying it to the Prime Minister of Great Britain.
Right.
We're gonna use that whenever we find it convenient.
Yeah. Senator Kennedy, who's also been really great with some great audio, making some great points, but that one is just a great. By the way, it's a great response to a lot of what's happening on the left. It's perfect in so many ways.
Well, they've been using, I'm looking at the curse words, because this seems to be the new strategy. Let's curse.
Yeah.
Let's use vulgar language.
Right.
Now, this week, they've used the A word. They've used the F word.
Right.
But using the D word may be progress for the progressives.
Well, yeah.
Because at least they are admitting by using the D word that there actually exists a biological male appendage.
Yeah.
So we may.
Could be some progress, you're saying. Is that what you're saying? Maybe. I don't have that confidence, but okay.
But
my
Garcia,
take on that whole thing is why are you guys on that side so obsessed with body parts?
with male genitalia.
Yeah. What is going on there? You know? I don't know. Doesn't sound healthy. That's what I'm saying.
By the way, I was talking to my buddy Jerry yesterday, and he just said, you guys are just having so much fun on the air.
Wow. Well, I mean, what are we supposed to do, Jerry? What are we supposed to do? I'm not going to get outraged that they're calling people names. It's not going to – they could call me a name. I don't care.
Well, I haven't heard – have the Republicans come out against Garcia for saying that the people actually need to take up actual weapons?
Right.
Because he was focusing on Elon
actual
Musk.
Weapons need to bring actual weapons.
He said actual weapons.
Fight.
We played it last hour. Yeah.
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 I mean, that has to be a concern.
Yeah. They're inciting. They wish. Well, we said earlier this week, and I think last week, they're begging for riots. They're begging for violence, and they're getting angry that they can't get the normal people outraged in order to protest, because what do you protest? And that's why look, whether it's Carville, whether it's the former Obama aides on the podcast that I saw yesterday saying, God, there's nothing, he's just doing so much and there's nothing we can do because you can't be against efficiency in government. It's like, well, yeah, you can, because they are.
They are.
And they're like, well, then that's the problem, that you can't win. You cannot win that argument. You just can't. And they had the DOGE subcommittee holding a war on waste hearing yesterday. Let's play some audio from that, because you sit there and you say, okay, how do you argue this? And this is Representative Brandon Gill, a Republican from Texas. And some of the stuff yesterday was just great. Let's just start playing. Here we go.
All we've heard about for most of this hearing from the other side of the aisle is Elon Musk, unelected bureaucrat. And I'd like to ask if Democrats really care about unelected bureaucrats making decisions over our lives, where were they whenever their god Anthony Fauci was forcing vaccine and mask mandates on the American people for 4 years during the during the COVID crisis? Where were they whenever unelected Alejandro Mayorkas was facilitating the invasion of our country by illegal aliens who were murdering and raping and pillaging our people? Where were they whenever the Secretary of Education, unelected Cardona, targeted states and schools and people who were disagreed with his view of the radical left's transgender ideology? Where were they whenever Gary Gensler, former chairman of the SEC, also unelected, was lawlessly thwarting the development of financial markets, particularly in the crypto space, by lawlessly pursuing regulation via enforcement? They were nowhere to be seen because they don't care, because all of those things benefited their side of the aisle at the expense of ours. And perhaps that's also why they don't seem to be very interested in rooting out improper payments from our federal government. If you wonder why so many people are cynical about American politics, this is it. This is exactly why. The reality is that Elon Musk serves as an employee of the president, and we were given a massive mandate to carry out what he's been doing. His job is to carry out the will of the American people as expressed through the executive. That's exactly how the Constitution is supposed to work. The Constitution did not create an unelected, unaccountable fourth branch of government in the administrative state. The American people know this. The Democrat Party has for decades systematically grown and weaponized the administrative state against the American people, and the American people have had enough of it.
There you go. Where's he wrong?
Again, no fat in what he just said. Nothing that you can take away and say, oh, well, this is also not something that's hard to understand. All of this is easily understandable, which is why you're not seeing outrage from the rank and file about this. It's coming from Capitol Hill. They're using expletives. They're doing what they do. But they're not conjuring up this heated protest, massive rank-and-file protest like they have in the past. And the reason is because people look at this and say, well, no, isn't that what, even if I didn't vote for him, people voted for him, he won, and this was part of what he was going to do. He promised to do this.
Jonathan Turley wrote an article yesterday. Understand Jonathan Turley, lifelong Democrat, but a constitutionalist. And he had a column yesterday in the New York Post. This week, the Democratic Party jumped the shark. And he relates it to the whole Happy Days thing.
Right.
For years, Democrats and their allies pushed the absurd claim that democracy was about to die if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris was not elected president. The public wasn't buying it in 2024. Donald Trump won a majority of voters, as well as control of both houses of Congress. Rather than examine its messaging, Democrats decided to double down. After the election, politicians and pundits announced a new constitutional crisis surrounding the effort to downsize the federal government, led by Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. Chris Mays, Attorney General for Arizona, declared this week, "We are on the brink of a dictatorship, and America has never been in a more dangerous position than she is today." The same media that carried out the breathless accounts of the imminent death of democracy with the last election are now running constitutional crisis articles with many of the same experts, despite Trump repeating that he will abide by the courts while appealing opposing decisions. National Public Radio insisted that Trump's circle has indicated it is willing to ignore the court orders and defy judicial authority. During the first term, Trump repeatedly lost cases, as did Obama and Biden, but Trump continued to comply with those rulings. The fact is that we have the oldest and most stable constitutional system in the history of the world. It has repeatedly survived challenges, from the political to economic meltdowns that would have destroyed other systems. That Madisonian system relies on an independent judiciary, including Trump appointees who regularly ruled against the Trump administration, including on the Supreme Court. For many citizens, what is most striking is not Trump's actions, but how Democrats are seeking to prevent the very reforms that a majority of the voters supported. Representative Ilhan Omar warned that this is a really, really sad day in America. We are witnessing a constitutional crisis. We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are. This is what the beginning of a dictatorship looks like when you gut the Constitution and you install yourself as the sole power. That is how dictators are made. Actually, that is not how dictators are made, but how democracies work. Trump ran on reducing the deficit and size of the government. The public is worried about a crisis, though it's not the one of democracy, but debt. In 2024, the $6.75 trillion budget exceeded our tax receipts of $4.9 trillion. The rest, $1.8 trillion, had to be borrowed. As a result, the national debt has ballooned and, if left on its current trajectory, would amount to 250% of gross domestic product within 3 decades. We are becoming a debtor nation where every citizen now shoulders, every single citizen in this country owes $106,000 to pay for out-of-control spending. Nevertheless, in the first DOGE subcommittee hearing in the House, Representative Steve Lynch of Massachusetts insisted he would defend democracy, which is under attack by DOGE, and the effort to carry out the Trump campaign pledges. What is truly in danger is the status quo. Chuck Schumer may have ironically had the most honest moment when he joined one of the daily protests and yelled how Musk's government efficiency efforts are taking away everything we have. By declaring a constitutional crisis, these figures are using rage rhetoric that gives license for extreme conduct and messaging. Ron Wyden has declared it a coup that's being carried out. Representative McIver of New Jersey insisted GD Shut down the Senate. We are at war. Representative Maxine Waters called on citizens to fight back as Cory Booker called for a fight in the streets for citizens to rise up. And you just heard Representative Garcia of California, we played it just before the beginning of the hour, call for actual weapons to be used in this case. Not to be outdone in the rage fest, Representative Jasmine Crockett, oh, God, my congressperson, what a nutcase. So we're going to be in your face, we're going to be on your A word, and we're going to make sure you understand what democracy looks like, and this ain't it. Biden was repeatedly found to have violated the Constitution, including with unilateral actions through executive orders. Courts called him out for it. None of these Democratic members declared a coup or the collapse of democracy. So there you go. It's a bunch of BS coming from the Democrats.
Yeah.
That's Jonathan Turley, New York Post. Turley, a Democrat, just so people know, and constitutional law professor.
Yeah, it's it makes you wonder at what point do they get back to they're moving on they announced this whole reparations thing. I guess that's getting back to their agenda. It's not going to happen, but Trump is a racist, therefore. And so, but I don't know. I don't know what you do. Is this the only thing they can do until they regain power? Is scream expletives?
Yeah, like I said, that's the new thing now. It's cursing. Cursing, and Musk is worse than Hitler.
Right.
And nobody buys it.
No.
Nobody buys it.
Of course not. Yeah. It's an interesting place that the Democrats are in.
Oh, I find it the most interesting thing in politics today, just looking at it from the historical point of view.
Right.
I've never seen it where in my lifetime covering politics, but going back to all modern history that I know about. I mean, maybe something happened in 1790 or something, but I've never seen a major political party that can't win an argument on any of the major points that are affecting the American public today.
Right.
They have nothing.
And they're just imploding. I mean, they're not getting they're not in favor with their own base. They really aren't. If you think about this idea of prominent Democrats and liberals, in the media and in show business, basically, are not looking kindly at the Democrats right now. They're wanting to look away. Everything is so cringe right now with what they're doing. We love it, by the way, and we do have more audio coming.
Oh, yeah. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Here's some audio. This is from Trump yesterday because the talking points yesterday was there's no transparency, that we don't know anything. And Trump said this yesterday.
Considering exemption, talk about widespread fraud and abuse.
Oh, yeah. Tremendous fraud. There's tremendous fraud, and it's hard to believe that you can have that kind of fraud. You're talking about are you talking about what? Wait. Which are you talking? You're talking about with regard to all of the investigations that are going on about this stupidity. What we're going to do is tomorrow I'm having a news conference. I'm going to read to you some of the names that hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars have been given to. And if you tell me that we should be giving money to those things, those entities, I think you'll probably have to leave as a reporter because you're not very talented. When you look at the kind of money, billions and billions of dollars being thrown away illegally, and there's no chance. I mean, I say it in front of our Attorney General, there's no chance that there's not kickbacks or something going on. When you give millions and millions of dollars to somebody that stands to look at something for 15 minutes and walks away with millions of dollars, that money's coming back in some form. And that's only one form of corruption. The biggest thing is what they do to our country. They're taking massive amounts of money and spending it on items. I went through a list of 200 expenditures that were made, and I found 3 that looked like they were reasonable. Okay, 3. And we'll be talking about that tomorrow.
There you go. And so they're screaming, no transparency, no transparency. We'll get to what Leavitt had to say yesterday on it. It's like, what are you talking about? You go to a website and see the things. You've got the receipts. We're putting this all out there. We're talking about it every day. And it's just amazing, though, that these are the political activists, the leftist political activists that are saying, we need transparency. We're not getting transparency yet. What? Believe Biden was?
Right.
Did you hear an outrage coming from day one from the reporters covering the Biden administration?
Right.
When he would turn his back and walk away and not answer any questions?
Then it turns out he wasn't at all of his national security briefings?
Right. But for transparency, there was no transparency in the Biden administration, and they're screaming on an administration that you've seen the first 3 weeks with more transparency than I've ever seen.
Right.
That there's no transparency.
Right.
Stop it.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Hey, after our show is over, which is at 5 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Eastern Time, which would then make it 4 a.m. Mountain Time and 3 a.m. West Coast, right?
I'll take your word for it. I'm not doing math.
We record our show, and then it becomes our podcast that you can listen to all day. You can listen to it over and over again. But that's what we do for you. All right, you ready? Here were the responses.
All right.
This is a response to the White House, from the White House yesterday. Karoline Leavitt on the constitutional crisis.
Okay. All right.
Before I take questions, I would like to address an extremely dishonest narrative that we've seen emerging over the past few days. Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law, and they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump. Quick news flash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts. 77 million Americans voted to elect this president. And each injunction is an abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people. As the president clearly stated in the Oval Office yesterday, we will comply with the law in the courts, but we will also continue to seek every legal remedy to ultimately overturn these radical injunctions and ensure President Trump's policies can be enacted.
Pretty simple. Has any Democrat argued that point, or do they just ignore it? They ignore it.
I don't know how you argue the point.
You can't. You can't argue the point. Did you see, though, what I loved yesterday? I don't know where this started, but I saw, the response to it. So I don't know who on the left started this, but they were saying, well, you could tell Trump was submissive to Elon Musk because Elon was standing and Trump was sitting.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I think was it National Review?
I knew, by the way, I knew the moment I saw that video the other day, I knew that was going to be one of the first reactions. Look, he's standing over Trump. All right. Fine. Whatever. Or he just happened to be standing up. He's got his son there, It's very predictable. Look, they're throwing court challenges that are going to go away fairly quickly. They're throwing everything they can in terms of expletives. They're coming up with new ones. But they can't talk the issues. You can't argue the things that they're talking about. One of the things we're not seeing right now is that argument in the liberal activist media against what's happening. They're obviously going after Trump, not fans of Trump, but they're not trying to fact check in the way that they have in the past. Because there's really no way to do that, honestly.
Are you ready for this?
Unless you're lying.
I found out where it came from. Huffington Post.
All right.
Listen to this. This is the leftist media at work. This is not, I want to make this clear, this is not the Babylon Bee. MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell pointed out the power plays that Elon Musk appeared to pull over Trump during their Oval Office press conference on Tuesday. Musk stood over Trump, delivering a picture of presidential subservience, the likes of which we have never seen, said O'Donnell. It was the most powerless image of the president of the United States ever created by a camera.
Wow. Ever. Huh?
And that's because Elon Musk was standing and Trump was sitting at his desk.
Right. Yeah.
Tech billionaire Musk, who Trump has tasked with slashing public spending via the non-official Department of Government Efficiency, did everything he possibly can to tell the world without saying a word that Donald Trump is not the boss of me. Musk, you ready for this now? Musk, the world's richest person, also violated other White House norms by wearing casual attire, being present with his child, and talking more than Trump. By O'Donnell's reckoning, Musk spoke 3,666 words. 666. He's not Hitler. He's the devil.
Okay.
While defending the work of DOGE compared to Trump's 2,487 words. I'm not making this up.
They're counting the words.
I'm not making this. Trump's first-term vice president, Mike Pence, never had a day like that in the Oval Office. Current Vice President J.D. Vance will never have a day like that in the Oval Office with Donald Trump because Donald Trump is the boss of J.D. Vance. My God. And he's implying that Elon Musk is the boss of Trump.
So you're watching this, right, as a rank-and-file liberal, right? You're just tuning in. There's no way this is appealing to you. This is like you're not learning anything by what he's doing here, this weird display. You counted the words? Because the first thing that comes to your mind, if you're a critical thinker, remember, we don't believe you're stupid.
Right.
We may disagree with your opinions. We don't believe you're stupid. So you're watching this, and it's primarily a liberal audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, the first thing I would think is, who counted the words? And in order to get it accurate, how many times did you count it? And then it's, why would you do that?
I'm glad I found where it came from. And then National Review commented on it. Misunderstanding the Musk-Trump Oval Office presser. It's been a left-wing trope that the last 24 hours, for the last 24 hours, that Musk-Trump event yesterday revealed that Musk has all the power in the relationship because Musk was standing and Trump was sitting. Also, because Musk talked a lot, here is the MSNBC host making the case, and they go to Lawrence O'Donnell.
Right.
This perhaps willfully misunderstands the dynamic. Trump knows he's the one in charge, so he can be relaxed about it. And one of the reasons Trump is so into Musk at the moment, nothing is forever, is that the tech billionaire is the greatest show on earth besides Trump himself. Trump appreciates good TV and good theater, and there's no doubt that Musk drives interest. The Oval Office event yesterday is an example. The whole thing was compelling, unusual, funny, and news-generating. If you're Trump, what's not to like? And it was really, we played yesterday, Chris Cuomo talking about it, saying it was the most amazing thing he's ever seen.
Well,
because of the transparency
right
with it. It was very informal. It was like, it was Trump's own kind of Trump-Elon Musk fireside chat. Because he's sitting there with one of his kids. I'm assuming that's who it was. Mm-hmm. And he's just talking about, this is about it. And, I'm the one that President Trump has, appointed to do this.
Right.
Under Trump's authority, whatever. And they explained it all. And it was, the thing is, it was so incredibly transparent that they had to change it into something else, which is, and think about this, Lawrence O'Donnell is trying to, and we mentioned this yesterday, Lawrence O'Donnell is trying to get you to believe that Hitler wants to be subservient to a dictator.
Yeah, right.
To another dictator.
Right.
Well, because Trump, of course, is Hitler, and Hitler now is a different kind of Hitler who wishes to be subservient to another kind of Hitler.
Well,
shut up.
They scream that there's no transparency at the same time that they're actually counting the thousands of words he said to explain what's going on. There's zero self-awareness in these amateurs, honestly. It's just a joke. Wow. My gosh. You counted the words. Also part of the group that's screaming no transparency. The reason for the words, by the way, did you listen to the words you counted? He was explaining what's going on and what the process is and why it's important to the American people and how this government is set up. But they're going to count the words and look, Trump is subservient. Right. Yeah. Right. That same Donald Trump, right? The fascist dictator is subservient.
Right. The fascist dictator that was elected.
Right.
The fascist dictator who was elected does not wish to be the dictator all the time and wants another dictator to be more powerful than him.
Right. The guy,
and his name is Elon Musk.
The guy who has his name on countless properties around the world is subservient.
Yes.
Yeah. This really is, it's just amateur night over and over again with these liberals. They really don't. My gosh, I mean, put up something. Come on.
I want to be sitting in the Democrats' talking point room where they hold the conference every day to produce the talking points.
Right.
I want to sit in that room just to see what the discussion is.
Well, no, I mean, exactly, because I was thinking this with the whole Lawrence O'Donnell thing. And that is, you know what we should do? Now, what's that? count the number of words that each of them said
to show who is subservient.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, that way we could demonstrate the lack of transparency with all the thousands of words. We're going to actually give you the number of words that they used to explain it in a very transparent way while also calling them non-transparent.
It's so bad right now. And the thing is, any intellectually honest Democrat, as we've seen, because I had watched the podcast with the Obama, all the different Obama aides there from his campaign, loyal Democrats, John Favreau and a bunch of other people, and they were just like, we can't beat this. Well, and the Democrats cannot be. Now, we believe Trump's destroying everything, but there's nothing you can do because how can you come out against efficiency in government? And they were admitting there's nothing that we can do. So they're making up stuff, and even they're looking at the response, and Carville's looking at the response. Roy Teixeira that we brought up yesterday from the Liberal Patriot. It's like, God, they just got to stop this. You're not going to win this.
You're making it worse.
Oh, my God.
You're adding to the problem that they have and had leading up to the election.
866-98 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, that was the Democrats' talking points yesterday that on MSNBC, that Trump is subservient, and the imagery was there because Elon Musk was standing in the Oval Office, and Trump was sitting there relaxed, looking at him and asking questions and things like that. And
right.
So it obviously
shows. The dictator is subservient.
Right. The dictator has decided to be subservient.
Right.
Now, he's not going to be subservient to other people, but Musk, he must be subservient too.
Uh-huh.
I mean, come on. There's not a Democrat that buys that. There's not any Democrat, because we know you listen, but there's not one of you that buys it.
Well, because
you don't buy it.
No, the strategy meeting has to start with, okay, where can we go next?
Yeah.
Right? How do we raise it from where we were before? But everything they do is more and more cringe.
Or before we do this, we need to be in the proper mindset. Don't pay attention to Senator Kennedy. Do a bong and come up with a bizarre, completely irrational, and totally unbelievable idea.
I think you're onto something. Pick the bong up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This is just great. Christopher Rufo posted this. He's the guy who really came out and explained critical race theory, and the racism of critical race theory. But he posted this from the other day. The left and the members of Congress protesting here. Here we go.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me. Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
And he writes, and it's so true, the left is spiritually stuck in 1963. Their entire politics is a reenactment. Boomer liberals want to live in an endless loop of the civil rights era.
We've been saying that.
Yep. But
for years.
But America has moved on, and we do not need to indulge their fantasy of permanent adolescent rebellion.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just weird.
I'm having too much fun here. We're just having we're having way too much fun. But it is so true. The problem is they have no argument, and the argument's different, by the way, than what it was from old school liberals back in the 60s. That's for another time. We've talked about that many times before, because there was a big distrust of government in the 60s.
Right. Yeah.
The 60s hippies, but it's the same. It's like they're all out there, but now they're begging. They're begging for you to riot. Not protest, riot. When you had the one representative from California come out and say, we need to bring actual weapons to this fight. By the way, Representative Garcia should be censured for that.
He should be.
They should bring it up. Yeah, because he said actual weapons. When you say actual weapons, you mean guns.
Right.
And it's just, oh, wow. It is so much fun. It's crazy, but it's so much fun. It really is.
Yeah, it is. Again, we only have to play their audio. We, in fact, insist on playing their audio. It's something we've said for years. The left has really wanted so many things to be the new civil rights era. And they've tried to mimic that. But there were things going on during that time that, of course, aren't in place now and don't apply. This is kind of it's the tactic they use all the time, right? They go too far with something, which makes it, when you stand back and look at it, it's like, what are you doing? Do you understand? Can you read the room at all? Is there any self-awareness at all? That this is not the civil rights era. It isn't.
No, it's not.
And the things that are going on right now, your side lost in November based on so many things that were in place. I mean, we talked about it. If we were giving the Democratic Party any advice officially, look, I want them to keep talking because we need audio every night. It's entertaining for us. We hope the audience enjoys it half as much as we do. But if I was going to give them any piece of advice, if I were to do that, I'd say, you need to go quiet for a minute. Regroup. I don't know where you go, but you got to regroup, because this is not going to work. This is, in fact, part of the reason you lost in November, because you've told lies. You make things seem like, there's this constitutional crisis, or that this is a civil rights era type fight. None of these things apply, and there's nothing you can do to make it apply.
The difference isn't, and Rufo makes such a great point. When you look at, I grew up in the 60s. I remember the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 60s, it was organic. It went from the bottom up.
Right.
The protests went from the bottom up.
Right.
I remember, seeing the fire hoses being shot as a kid, 8, 9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I even go back further. I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. I remember the Kennedy assassination. I just barely remember the Kennedy Nixon debate, and the only reason I remember that is I remember it like as a fog, as just one memory of it in my mind. But my late mother always used to tell me, especially when I became a talk show host, she goes, "You really didn't have you really didn't analyze politics good back then." I go, "What do you mean?" She said, "You thought Nixon won." Because they asked me, "Who do you think won?" I went, "That guy."
Mm-hmm.
And I pointed to Nixon.
Right.
And then I became a career of political analysis.
Right.
But the civil rights, I mean, it was driven by the outrage of the majority of Americans. This can't continue.
Right.
You cannot have this.
Right.
And now what it is there's really not a lot to protest. If you want to get a job, you can get a job. The discrimination that the left claims is happening in society actually isn't happening. Using race now is a political tool. That's what it is. You use it as a political tool. You cry that it's happening everywhere, and it's the worst thing everywhere, but the public doesn't see it that way.
Right.
The public doesn't actually see it. Even on defund the police, the whole thing, well, police are systemically racist to hunt down and kill blacks. Well, that was an abstract thought. That was a hypothetical based on a couple of incidents, as we have said, of how many police interactions a year. And you and I went through how many 911 calls there are. What was it, like 250 million 911 calls a year that police are put out? And then there's, the numbers have been done, 30 million encounters on the street and everything else. And you may have 3 or 4 questionable things that happen a year. When you put that into perspective, it's not institutionalized racism like we saw in the 60s. It's not systemic in the institutions. It's the complete opposite. Right. And so the public doesn't see, and that's why, you had the defund the police movement was a political thing, but when you talk to the people in their own community, whether it was in the suburbs, whether it was in the city, everybody was happy with what their local police were doing in their particular neighborhood.
Right.
That's not the way it was in the 60s. And so it started at the bottom and went up. What you're seeing now is they're trying to start it and make the protest start from the top down and say, this is what's happening. For example, they're not using racism right now. They weren't using it last week. What they're using is it's a dictatorship and it's a constitutional crisis. And we need to get out on the streets. But you're not explaining why it's a constitutional crisis because you can't.
Right.
If you explain to the people that Trump, the elected president, has appointed somebody to be his consultant to find out where the waste is, publicize where the waste is, and then he will give recommendations to the president or anybody who has authority over that department will then make decisions to do that. You cannot convince a normal American that is a constitutional crisis. They'd go, well, that's the way that it works.
Right.
And that's what, and so they try to make it up as Lawrence O'Donnell was doing. Think about how poor that, could you imagine if you got to be sitting there as somebody who's a stockholder. It's the Comcast, right?
Yeah.
You got
the
head people in Comcast. We got to dump this network. We've got to. This is just, it's ridiculous. It does. Right. You're not even making a liberal point. You're making a delusional point.
Right.
Like I said, it's almost as if you've got the opposite Senator John Kennedy advice. Do the bong, then go on the air.
Yeah.
Because you cannot have these opinions and have a sober mind. You can't.
Well, think about this. The left seemingly has lost their ability to attack Donald Trump.
Yes, they have. Yeah. We talked about that yesterday.
That's when you step back and look at that and say that out loud, it describes where we are. It's the change we've gone through as a nation, the pain we've gone through inflicted on the American people by the former administration, and I think some changes that Donald Trump himself has gone through over the years, all coming together, culminating in the situation we're in right now, and the left is lost.
Oh, absolutely lost. So, yeah, that's why you can't, when I saw Christopher wrote that, I went, that's beautiful. But what they don't realize is the 60s protests didn't start from the top and go down.
Right.
It came from the bottom up.
It was an uprising. Exactly.
Right. And so you're sitting there and and it was obvious. You could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, was there racism? Well, yeah, it was institutionalized. You had Jim Crow laws.
Mm-hmm.
Government said you knew it. Everybody knew it. It wasn't hidden. Now they throw out a constitutional crisis and say, we don't need to explain it.
Right.
Or they throw out, we're a racist society, and people go through their daily lives and they're like, well, I can go into this restaurant. I can do this. Nobody harasses me here or there. I go everywhere. I live my life. I'm being told I'm a victim every day by the people that I vote for, but I'm going through my life. I've got a job. I've got this. I get along with people of different colored skin. It's no big deal. And so the things that they promote, the public, the racism, climate change too. People really don't feel climate change.
No.
And that's why it's not, because people don't actually experience and feel it to the degree that they're being sold it, which is why the left has to come up with the catastrophic conclusions of where climate change is going to go. And then people over the last 30 years have said, well, the Earth's really supposed to be gone 30 years ago, wasn't it? Or the polar ice caps are supposed to be gone, or all the glaciers are supposed. Well, every prediction you've made hasn't happened. Maybe there's no credibility to what you're saying.
Right.
And so the things that they're talking about now, a constitutional crisis, and Trump is a dictator. Well, no, Trump isn't a dictator. Trump has appointed another dictator. People look at that and go, okay, let me watch this. What's going on? Boy, really, we're spending money on that? That sucks. We're spending money on that. Let that go. And Trump even said, out of the 200 things, I saw 3 that might be worthwhile in spending.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, okay, we'll spend on that, but all these other things aren't worthwhile. And they're presenting it to the American public. The website is open now for DOGE, where you can see the receipts and the contracts and everything else. They're publicizing everything, and they're saying there's a lack of transparency and they're a dictatorship. And the public looks at it. Even Democrats look at it and go, shut up.
Right.
You're not helping us.
Because they don't see that urgency. The left is not good at the fear-mongering game right now that they've been using. You lie to create fear, to create a sense of urgency, to create an uprising. And when something's real, like during the civil rights era, that uprising is going to happen from the people.
Yeah.
And they think they can do this again, and they've been successful in the past until recently. And what squashed all of that? Reality. The reality on every front that, again, was a threat at some level to their families, including a broken border. That's a threat to your family. We're coming after your kids in the schools. We're going to put books in front of them that you may not agree with. We're going to take your ability as a parent, if your child decides they want to have sexual mutilation, genital mutilation surgery, that's a threat. Inflation is a threat. A rise in violent crime in your neighborhood is a threat to your family. All of these things are greatly disconcerting, which is what makes people act. That right there is your sense of urgency. And that's the reality created by their own agenda, and they still don't see it.
Or the ultimate one, inflation.
Yep.
You feel that.
You can't afford groceries and back to school.
Right.
You got to make a choice. That is a threat to your family. That is disconcerting. Everything around them that they were dealing with every day, and the left doesn't see it. Your agenda did this.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Once a roadside inspection is completed, the officer will close it out, which involves the officer writing or typing up the report. The more the officer found during the inspection, the longer this will take. If violations were discovered, most officers, as a courtesy, will explain the violations to the driver. If there were any out-of-service violations, the officer will normally explain what must be done to get the out-of-service order lifted. Drivers need to be very attentive during this part of the inspection. The driver also needs to read and understand the complete inspection report. After receiving the inspection report, the driver has 24 hours to get the roadside inspection report to the motor carrier. If the driver will not be returning to a company facility within the next 24 hours, the driver needs to know to get it on the way to you via email, mail, or fax within 24 hours. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm sorry, I started laughing because I was the op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, Matthew Hennessy. Democrats ought to love DOGE. If you want effective government, how could you object to a leaner bureaucracy?
Right, exactly. I love
it. Said, just a couple of sentences here. Elon Musk's glorious rampage through official Washington is like something of a dream. Many conservatives and some Republicans have fantasized for decades about laying off government and laying off bureaucrats and shrinking the government. Nobody's ever pulled it off.
Nobody thought it could be done.
Even Ronald Reagan, the great apostle of smaller government, could not achieve in 8 years what Musk has done in 3.5 weeks. By the way, it's not Musk that's done it; it's Trump.
Right, exactly.
You just because if you say Musk, then they'll say, "Well, he's making the decisions." Then no,
right? Yeah,
he's pointing out the problems.
Right.
The billionaire businessman is less apostle than avenging angel. The Department of Government Efficiency is a change we've been waiting for. Naturally, Democrats and progressives are outraged. Schumer accuses Musk of running an illegal shadow government staffed by a secret squad of company men. Some are even calling it a coup, but no coup ever made a buyout offer.
Right, exactly.
Oh, my God, that's
that.
hilarious. The left's DOGE-inspired hysteria is silly. It is a political blunder.
Yeah.
As you're seeing now, Democrats that are intellectually honest are saying, they can't win this. What are they doing?
Right.
You've got to stop this. This is political as Roy Teixeira said the other day from the Liberal Patriot. This is political suicide.
It is.
He's liberal. You've got to stop this.
Right.
Wow. Great stuff.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thanks for being here. All right, back to the audio cuts. This is a reporter yesterday at the White House press briefing asking Karoline Leavitt for proof of the contracts that DOGE is terminating. This is the talking point yesterday was there's no transparency, there's no transparency, there's no transparency. Here was her reaction to the reporter.
I would love for Elon Musk to come to the briefing room. That's why we had him go to the Oval Office yesterday, where I think he provided great answers. He was speaking in layman's terms, speaking common sense to all of you in the media, but also to Americans at home. But I would say especially to all of you in the media, because I think it's a real fallacy that there's this alleged lack of transparency when it comes to DOGE. President Trump and Elon Musk have been incredibly transparent on what DOGE is doing. There is an X account with the DOGE handle. They are are tweeting out what they are doing on a daily basis. They have a website where they are posting the receipts of the contracts that they are reviewing and the payments that they have stopped from going out the door. The secretaries of our departments have stopped from going out the door. And I would also say that before it was Elon Musk making our government efficient and accountable, it was some unnamed bureaucrat that none of you knew. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He's also now one of the most highly scrutinized men in the world alongside President Trump because of what he's doing and the access that he is allowing. So there's great transparency. As for the actual receipts, we are happy to provide them, and I actually brought some today because all of you know I love to bring the receipts. We have contracts upon contracts that we can send and provide this information to you. Let me be very clear. We are not trying to hide anything. We have been incredibly transparent, and we will continue to be. These are screenshots of contracts that DOGE found across our government. This is a DEI contract, $36,000 for U.S. citizenship and immigration services. That is against the president's policies and his America First agenda. This is a $3.4 million contract, a Council for Inclusive Innovation at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Department of Commerce, another DEI contract that DOGE identified. I can continue to go through these. Oh, I love this one. $57,000 for climate change in Sri Lanka. What is this doing to continue the interests of the American people? Absolutely nothing. These are the line items across the federal government that DOGE is identifying daily. They're moving very fast. There's a lot of paper that we can show you, but we're happy to do it. This administration has been more than transparent about what DOGE is doing. And here's one of their tweets that they posted about the mine. I believe this is in Pennsylvania, where the federal employee retirement system is being processed. Did anybody know this was even happening in our country before Elon Musk talked about it in the Oval Office yesterday? A lot of Americans didn't. So we are providing transparency and accessibility on a daily basis.
There you go.
Yeah, it's. I love the fact that she's. we have the receipts. I love
saw
the fact
your
that
smile.
Yeah, I love that approach because, again, it's been anything but non-transparent. Everything has been out there, and the left doesn't get it. Lawrence O'Donnell and this laughable approach of counting the words. You're part of the group that is screaming that there's no transparency while you actually give the number of words he used to explain what's going on while being transparent. There's not a better example of that kind of, it goes far beyond hypocrisy. It's just a weird approach now that the left has at going at Trump and now Elon Musk over this whole thing, when people will tell you, you ask them the simple question, should we trim things like this? If you're to name these things, climate change in Sri Lanka, should taxpayer money, your taxpayer money, be going to that? No. No, it shouldn't be. Great. It's on the list for a reason. These things are coming to the surface for a reason.
The argument that was coming from the left yesterday, I'll give you an example, was that Elon Musk isn't qualified, that we need professional auditors in there, people that actually do it for a living, and this needs to be bipartisan. It's just like...
Yeah, right.
And I'm thinking to myself, the public's looking at this going, what are you talking about? Professional auditors. If they suspect fraud, they can put the auditors in then, the accountants in then to do it. But I could look at any statement and say, I think there might be fraud here. Get the auditors in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that. And I'm sure part of the people that were working for him also are auditors.
Right.
And so this is a back and forth between, this is Scott Jennings from CNN. I think it's Nick Ackerman, I think his name is. His title is former assistant Watergate prosecutor.
Yeah.
They're going way back to find people. But here's this back and forth. Here we go.
Here's what I think is a joke. that you have these partisan hack Democrat attorney generals. They get together, and the only thing they know how to do is try to nullify the results of the last election by venue shopping these district court judges. They find the most lunatic liberals they can. They file lawsuits knowing full well they're going to try to usurp the president's authority, tie this up in court for years.
That stuff is sacrosanct. And you've got people going in there who don't know anything about that system.
These are also just restraining orders.
Doing this.
They're
he knows
asking
nothing about it.
What you just said is so profound. You said these people don't know anything and they don't know what they're doing.
That's right.
But they're appointees.
But Elon Musk.
I understand. But they are appointees of the duly elected president. So your view, you're here as our legal expert, but your view is because you don't personally believe they know enough that the duly elected president, who appointed a Treasury Secretary and who appoints special appointees like Elon Musk, shouldn't be able to act as the president because you don't personally believe they know enough?
Well, they
is
certainly
that how it works?
no.
Or do elections mean anything to you?
Well, it's got nothing to do with elections.
Of course,
the fact of the matter is, there is a
It's got nothing to do with
elections. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's just, you break it down and they can't win. How long ago did we say this? We got to the point where the Democrats can't win one argument.
Right. Not one.
Every single argument is defeated.
Well, they've lost the control of the narrative. You know, part of what's happened in recent years with Elon Musk changing how Twitter, now X, works is that the left had control of the narrative through social media. And they did this. You control the narrative. You control people's voices, and you make anybody who wants to apply critical thinking or even question something, you ban them from the entire platform. And now nobody feels like they have to ask permission to be a fact checker. And they can be a part of the conversation. This is the left losing control of the narrative. They literally controlled it for years. They no longer control it, and they can't debate the issues, so this is where they are. There's just no way for them on the issues to win.
You know, Michael Schellenberger posted this because online they're getting destroyed. Mm-hmm. But they have the headline from the New York Times, without proof that bureaucracy is rife with fraud. President Trump added his approval as he let Elon Musk, the world's richest man, explain the rationale for the administration's government overhaul without proof that the bureaucracy is rife with fraud. Michael Schellenberger writes, the New York Times says Musk asserts without proof that bureaucracy is rife with fraud. Seriously? The General Accounting Office under Biden last year estimated we're losing $233 to $521 billion per year to fraud.
That was a story. That was a big story.
Guys, it's right there. Why do you continue with this fraud?
Exactly.
I mean, it's beautiful to see. I mean, it's just every day I wake up saying, okay, what kind of argument are they going to try to come up with today?
Yeah. Right. I mean, every approach. They've tried everything.
You know, what's the argument today going to be? Because everything lasts a day or two, and then they move on to the next one.
Right.
But that's what you have to do. I know at times, you know, we've done it as talk show hosts, and at times it does get monotonous because they'll use the same argument. They've used the climate change and race argument for years.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
It's like, well, you guys are arguing the same way because we're right on that argument. They're making a point. We're using the point that defeats their point.
Right.
It may be the same point, but they're making the same point every single day. And so the response has to be the response that we give that's a slam dunk and destroys their argument.
Yeah.
But you got to do it every day, and sometimes it's the repetition. But I love the repetition coming from Republicans. It's one of the complaints we've had in the past. The Republicans seem to say things once and go, okay, we've said it, we've covered it, let's move on and never mention it again. It's like, no.
Well, and speaking of controlling the narrative, there's no lack of confidence. Leavitt, the president, Elon Musk, the cabinet picks during their hearings. You hear that. This is a straightforward, proactive approach. They're not responding. That's the difference. The GOP for far too long was all about waiting for something to come, back at them or be thrown at them before they acted. No. Hegseth posted the other morning, leading from the front instead of that whole lead from behind thing.
Lead from behind.
Yeah, he was working out with members of the military. These are people who are proactive. You couldn't be more transparent.
I know. Well, but the whole thing. Here's the thing. You're not being transparent, but you look at it and you go, but the whole purpose is the transparency. If there's no transparency, there's no purpose. Then Elon Musk can't make and Trump can't make his point that there's waste.
Right.
If they're not transparent, it defeats the whole purpose of them existing.
Right. They've got to tell the American people what they're finding so that there's political will to get this all done. It's part of why they're doing it.
It's like we just, as we talk about this, come up with another argument. I just want to scream at times, just go, Senator Kennedy, you got the ball.
The clueless Lawrence O'Donnell.
I know.
How does he even have a show?
They're
not being transparent. Now, let me tell you how many thousands of words they used while they were explaining the process of what they're doing to the American people, being transparent. Does he not watch his own show? Is he not there? I mean, he's just not. There's no self-awareness for any of them. They don't understand what they're actually doing. It's really bizarre. It's weird. I'm with you. I don't know if it's what Senator Kennedy says, put down the bong, or the opposite. Pick up the bong. Something. You got to do something. Whatever you're doing, do the opposite. Because it's not working.
When you think about it, that what has ticked off everybody is the transparency.
Right.
What's ticked off not everybody. What's ticked off the Democrats is the transparency. They're pointing out these things.
Right.
And then they're screaming, well, you're not being transparent.
Right.
Well, you wouldn't be screaming if we weren't transparent.
Right. How is that you even know what we're doing? Because we're being transparent about it. Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
We are dealing with children.
They're children.
We're
about
dealing
to say
with children.
It's kids. It's very small. At least actual children can learn. These people don't seem to learn.
Right. They're not high adults.
No.
They're high children. No, I'm saying
something's going on.
No, but it's like really dealing with children, isn't it?
Yep.
It's like arguing with the child.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Our show ends in another hour, and after the show is done, we have our podcast up and going, which is a repeat of the show. So you can listen there. And if for some reason you can't listen to one of our great radio stations overnight, we live stream all 5 hours on our app. So there you go. Coming up, Jim Jordan, Ted Cruz, and more.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.